Of upholding the responsibilities that come with citizenship.
Okay, earlier we were talking about India's single citizenship model.
Right, a pretty unique concept.
Yeah. Can we unpack that a little more?
For sure. So
Okay.
even though India has both a central government and state governments, there's only one overall citizenship, which is Indian citizenship.
Right, we're all Indians first.
Exactly. It emphasizes that your allegiance is to the nation as a whole, not just your particular state.
Which is different from, say, the USA, where you're a citizen of the country, ain't your specific state.
Right, like being a Californian and an American.
Exactly. And our source says that kind of dual citizenship model can potentially lead to discrimination.
I can see how that could happen.
Yeah, like a state might prioritize its own citizens over those from other states, especially when it comes to things like voting or holding public office.
It creates a kind of in-group versus out-group dynamic.
Right, but India's single citizenship aims to avoid that, saying we're all equal no matter where we're from.
Exactly, promoting unity and equal opportunities for everyone.
Okay, but our source does mention a few exceptions to this whole no discrimination based on where you live thing.
Right, there are always a few nuances.
Yeah, for instance, Parliament can set residency requirements for certain jobs within a state.
And our source specifically mentions Andhra Pradesh as the only state that currently does this.
Huh, interesting. Seems like they really want to prioritize jobs for their residents.
It's one way to approach it, for sure.
Another exception is that while you can't be discriminated against based on religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth, notice how they leave out residence.
Good point. That means states technically can give special benefits to their residents, but only in areas that aren't protected as fundamental rights.
So, like, they could offer lower college tuition to residents, but they couldn't say only residents can vote.
Exactly.
Okay, makes sense. Our source also mentions a couple of other exceptions.
Oh, yeah?
One has to do with protecting scheduled tribes.
Okay.
So in certain areas, they can restrict freedom of movement and residence to safeguard the interests of those communities.
That makes sense. It's about preserving their culture and a way of life.
Right. And the last exception is all about Jammu and Kashmir.
Ah, a unique situation.
Definitely. Because of its special status, the state legislature gets to decide who's a permanent resident and can give them special rights related to government jobs, property, and things like that.
So acknowledging the need for regional autonomy in certain cases?
Exactly. So our source kind of sums up this whole single citizenship thing by saying it's similar to how it works in Canada.
Interesting comparison.
Yeah, and that ultimately it's about creating a unified and integrated Indian nation.
Which is a great goal, but it's not without its challenges, right?
Right, because even with single citizenship, India still faces social and political issues like communal tensions and linguistic disputes.
It highlights that legal frameworks alone can't guarantee social harmony.
For sure. Okay, ready for another layer of complexity?
Hit me with it.
Let's talk about overseas citizenship of India, or OCI.
Ah, OCI, a topic that often causes a bit of confusion.
It does. But our source actually gives a great historical overview, starting with this committee formed back in 2000 to study the Indian diaspora.
So looking at how to strengthen those ties with Indians living abroad.
Exactly. This committee was led by L.M. Singhvi, and they released their report in 2002, recommending dual citizenship for persons of Indian origin, or PIOs, from certain countries. And that recommendation actually led to some big changes in the Citizenship Act, paving the way for OCI.
So a direct link between that committee's work and the introduction of OCI.
Yep. And in 2003, they amended the act to introduce OCI for PIOs from 16 specific countries, but Pakistan and Bangladesh were excluded.
I see.
But here's the important thing, and it's often misunderstood. OCI is not actually dual citizenship.
Ah, that's crucial to remember.
Yeah, because the Indian Constitution prohibits dual citizenship.
So OCI is something else entirely.
Right. It's more like a special status with certain rights and privileges, but it's not full-blown citizenship.
It occupies this interesting space in between.
Okay, then in 2005, they expanded OCI to include PIOs from all countries, again, except Pakistan and Bangladesh, as long as their home countries allowed dual citizenship.
It's like India opening its doors to the diaspora while also being mindful of other countries' rules.
Right. And then to simplify things, in 2015, they merged the existing PIO card scheme with the OCI card scheme.
So one card for everything.
Exactly. Much simpler. So who's eligible for this OCI card? It covers a pretty wide range of people, like folks who used to be Indian citizens, people eligible for citizenship back in 1950, folks from territories that later joined India, their kids, grandkids, even great-grandkids.
So really encompassing multiple generations.
Yeah, and spouses of Indian citizens or OCI cardholders, too.
It's a broad invitation to connect with those Indian roots.
It is. But of course, there's a but.
Uh-oh.
People with Pakistani or Bangladeshi lineage are specifically excluded.
A reminder that history and politics always play a role.
Absolutely. So what does this OCI card actually get you? Well, remember, it's not full citizenship, so no voting rights or holding high office.
Right, and you also can't work in certain government jobs.
But there's some awesome benefits.
Like what?
Well, you get a lifelong visa to India.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, and you don't have to register with the foreigner's regional registration officer, no matter how long you stay.
So it's like having VIP access to India.
Pretty much. While it's not full citizenship, it definitely offers a strong connection and some great perks.
It bridges that gap between foreigner and citizen.
Exactly. Okay, we've covered a lot, from how to get and lose citizenship to single citizenship and OCI.
Quite a journey through the world of Indian citizenship.
It has been, but there's one more thing we need to touch upon, something a little more, I guess, human.
Moving beyond the rules and regulations.
Exactly, into the real-life impact of all this. Okay, so we've spent a lot of time talking about all these different aspects of Indian citizenship.
Yeah, all the ins and outs, the rules, the history.
But now I kind of want to shift gears a bit and talk about, well, what does it all actually mean for people?
Right, going beyond just the legal framework.
Exactly. Our source doesn't really get into this, but it's something we should definitely think about.
I agree.
Like, we learned about all those grounds for deprivation of citizenship.
Right, fraud, disloyalty, living abroad for too long.
Yeah, but what happens to someone when their citizenship is actually revoked? What do they DO?
It's a really important question. Losing your citizenship can be a huge deal, affecting your sense of belonging, your rights, everything.
It's got to be disorienting, like suddenly not belonging to the country you've always called home.
Exactly. And it raises all sorts of questions about identity, security, your future.
It makes you think about the human cost of all these legal processes.
Definitely. There needs to be a balance between upholding the integrity of citizenship and protecting the basic rights of individuals.
Absolutely. This whole deep dive has really made me see citizenship in a new light.
Me too.
It's not just some legal status. It's about who we are, where we belong, our rights and responsibilities.
Well said. And for anyone listening who's prepping for the UPSC exam, this is crucial stuff to know.
For sure. This deep dive has given everyone a solid foundation for understanding Indian citizenship.
We've covered the history, the different ways to acquire and lose it, single citizenship, OCI.
We even touched on some of the ethical stuff.
Hopefully it sparks some curiosity for our listeners to learn even more.
Yeah, whether you're a UPSC aspirant or just interested in this stuff, there's always more to explore.
And maybe this even makes you think about citizenship on a global level, in this interconnected world.
That's a great point. How does our understanding of citizenship evolve as the world changes?
Definitely something to ponder.
All right. Well, we'll leave everyone with that thought-provoking question.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Indian citizenship.
We'll be back soon with more fascinating topics to explore.